Welcome again to another week with me. Today we have my good friend Santiago Tomasi and Pablo Salo. And here today at the ELF Dragonsland, we're going to talk a little bit about the ELF and the last week and all about football. So, week 1. We're going to start off with the Berlin against Vestuario, 36-3. It was a really contested game. I don't think so. Moving on to Paris versus Cologne. A very good start to Paris. Let's see how they move on to week 2. Let's see how it goes. A big surprise. Panthers with the first victory against the Hamburg Sea Devils. Moving on to the next game, the Guards against Dragons, 17-29. Good start for Dragons and their new quarterback, Connor Miller. Let's see how it goes for this week. We have Kings against the Lions. Close game, 18-15. Fumble fest. We'll talk about it later on. And lastly, we have the Galaxy against the Fire, 9-33. Big surprise. Rainfire with a solid game overall. Big plays in offense, big plays on defense, establishing a really big game. And then we have the Raiders against the Ravens. Really the big shootout of the week, 59-38. Tyrol showing off why they're top tier team against the Ravens. Okay, and moving on to the results and pretty much the records for this week. We'll have on the screen right now a little bit of like the results of this week. We have the Eastern Conference with Berlin, the Panthers, and the Kings. All of them with their first victory in week 1. Moving on to the Central Conference. We're going to have the Tyrol, the Dragons, showing off why they're the veterans of their conference and getting a victory in the week 1. And last but not least, the Western Conference. Okay, big surprises. Fire with a victory against the Galaxy, and Paris showing off that they have the potential to be a great team, but we have to see what they're gonna do this week coming up. Okay, so let's start the show.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about a little bit of the very first game, Berlin against Vestuario.
Okay.
What do you guys think?
It was a game, no? It was a really tough game for Hungary. I think that the big issue was the offensive line. Berlin did whatever they want. Kyle Kitchens did a great match. So I think that it's a very big issue in Freiburg that it sometimes resembles a little bit like Rams last year with that offensive tackles problem. So
yeah, I mean the Berlin, they just pretty much showed up and take over the W. 36-3. I mean, for Harvard, didn't really much contend that game. As you said, Cal Kitchens showing off that he's a top player with 4 sacks. How many tackles?
5 tackles for loss in that game. Crazy.
And a touchdown. And a touchdown.
Scoop and score also. Yeah. I think that Cal Kitchens is an offensive problem in that team. All the offensive game plan of Air Thrones have to adapt to that guy, and they cannot, basically.
Basically. And I mean, Berlin, they had their mistakes. They were not executing as they should.
It wasn't a perfect game, but
yeah.
The offense, a little bit, not really dominating at all. So
yes, of course. I mean, especially, I don't really know why the teams decide to start changing up their quarterbacks. I mean, quarterbacks are like a key position, and I don't know why. Like in this league, they have this tradition of changing the quarterbacks, and Berlin did it, and I don't know why they did it, but they managed to take the W.
Yeah,
but you can tell that he has to still adapt to the.
We have to see
system.
maybe it was like an easy game, and they are like changing the quarterbacks maybe for see if this quarterback of that quarterback is gonna result is more a leader, is going to bring for the team more yards. I think that maybe because they have that comfort zone in this game, they were trying things. Let's see if in the next game they keep the same strategy or they push one QB for QB1 spot and see the other backup.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think we could move on to the next game. Paris against Cologne, 24-17, right? We already talked about it last week. What do you guys think? What first impressions of Paris, very first game?
I think that it depends of how do you rate them last week. If you rate them as the big threat to the league, it was disappointing. If you rate them as a new team in the league, it's true that with many veterans, but a new team, it's a good enough start. They have won first game, big hooray for the French team. But I think that we have seen that Cologne other years hasn't been the biggest threat, and in this week it was a really tough game. The game went 0-0, 0-0 to the halftime. So I think that's a little bit concerning.
Yes.
Good defense by Paris. Offense, it was a little bit pointless in some.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that with the names that bring Paris in the passing game offense, we expect much more than what we see. But it's true that they have to keep take some rhythm that they have not in the first half. They adjust, and in the second half we see a much better offense. So let's see if there is a team that is keep growing week or half. It's half. So
yeah, I mean, it is true that Paris is a first game, right? Big names.
Yeah.
Zach, I mean, I don't know what it was. He didn't start off great, but the team as a whole at the third quarter, they started making points, putting points on the board, and I think it's a slow start.
Yeah.
But I think that they can manage to build up and get momentum.
I think it all depends on how they rate themselves. I think if they rate themselves as a good enough team to be a playoff contender, probably the first week is good enough. If you think that you have to fight, for example, Vikings for the first stop in the first spot in the regular season, you are far away of what we have seen, for example, in the Raiders game. So I think that's the issue right now. For a new team, if we consider a new team, good enough.
I think the biggest problem was in the first half. Zach was not comfortable.
No.
He didn't have a pocket. The Centurions have Zachary Blake with 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and Janek Wenk with 1.5 sacks, 1.5 tackles for loss. So that's a little bit disappointing for that offensive line of Paris. They have to improve, and let's see if they can give Takewar more comfort zone to play his game.
And let's see how Zachary Blair plays in a better team, because we have seen him in really tough spots. Right now, I don't think that Cologne is a top 5 team of the league,
No.
but maybe it's good enough to
playoff
be
contender, maybe.
exactly the last wild card. So I think
Yeah.
that
I mean,
tiebreak is going to be
I
interesting.
mean, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, again, Paris has big weapons.
Yeah.
SAC
Yeah.
has those weapons. I just think that they've never really played
All
together,
together, yeah.
all together, and they pretty much have to get used to it, get like game rhythm,
Yeah.
and start getting like those feelings about
In
like
that system.
exactly. I mean, to when it comes to the sacks, it's not a very comfortable position to be in. I mean, after all, you're not getting like a clean look in the pocket. Sack has to like
Scramble.
scramble.
Yeah.
But
He's
we
a
already,
good scramble.
yeah,
Yeah.
we've already seen it in the past. He has the ability to scramble. I mean, maybe he could run
Continue
a little bit more.
reading while he's scrambling.
Exactly.
He takes many sacks, that's true, that we have seen in Dragons, that he tends to overextend the plays. I agree, that's good because you can
a
have
really good athlete.
a good pass, but also you can get a sack. So I think that's gonna be the thing this year for Paris. How much does sack overextends and how much does the line improve, the O-line.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the payback.
Yeah.
The payback
Yeah.
game. Hamburg against Panthers. 25-34 for the Panthers. I mean, we already talked about it last week. We were talking about its payback moment.
Yeah.
Panthers,
Revenge.
Yeah.
they were going into this game with an extra motivation,
sure.
and they pull it off. They
Yeah.
pull it off.
And I think that's the kind of game that you want from Rochua, from Panthers. They played really solid.
Yeah.
Tony Tate did, I think, the most absurd stat that I have ever seen because it's 175 yards, okay. 4 receptions, that's weird because that's 44 yards per catch. But also he has 3 touchdowns. He made, I think, that almost the perfect game in a receiver. And I think that the Panthers did something that they did last year, but having better finishing, having better
Yes.
performance. That is, they know what they want to play, and they go to the extreme with that game plan. They did it this week. They converted when they had to, and they won. Tough day for Hamburg, and I think that it's weird because they say he's not the QB, but this year we're gonna talk a lot about him, especially in that cornerback position because it was tough for him and tough for the team.
Yeah, I mean, especially going back to what we're talking about, changing the quarterback position a lot. I mean, I understand that it's the 3rd year of the league, and you're gonna have some tweaks here and there, and you're trying to figure out the QB position for your team.
Yeah.
But moving your quarterback to the defense,
Your quarterback, the 2 first years, because he played half first year and third parts of the second. So
yes, and then I mean, you move a quarterback to a different position. I can see moving up, like to say, to a wide receiver position.
yeah.
He's gonna have like a better chemistry with the QB. He's gonna understand him better. They're gonna think alike.
He's in the same side of the ball.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and then you're moving on. You're pretty much moving him to a completely different spot. I don't know Cisse's story. Maybe he played cornerback years ago, but that's not a good look for him, especially because like as a cornerback, I mean, he's a scrambler. He likes to run the ball. He likes to like the contact.
He's not afraid of tackling.
He's not afraid of contact, right? But there's more to it.
Yeah.
You have to learn how to tackle. You have to learn all this set of skills that you're not used to it.
I think that he was a little bit slow for that position. You have to play against receivers that they are really, really fast, really good athletes, and he was not at that level physically.
I mean, especially because like he's an athlete.
Yeah.
He's an athlete, but to when it comes to performing in that position, it's not like all these other players that they're already used to that. He has to think more. He's not like just have this
doesn't have
instinct.
automatized.
Yeah, he doesn't have the instinct. He has to react to what's going on. So, okay, I see a slant here, I see a fade, whatever the route might be. He's reacting to that. He's not like, okay, this is my assignment. I have to do this. I have to do that.
Yeah.
He's overthinking things.
Yeah.
And that's what like makes him slower.
Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe that's.
So let's see how Hamburg does. But again, I think that the good point for the Panthers is that compared to last year, they were performing well enough last year to be like an okay team, especially because like they were not winning, but they were not like getting embarrassed. They were performing, they were putting up points, and they were working, and they were like
Contesting the game.
contesting the games. And I think that this year, or at least this very first game, they're finishing.
Yeah.
As you said, they're finishing. It's not like we move up the ball to the 25-yard line and then we lose it because like whatever might be a fumble.
They
a
minimize
turnover, and that
the mistakes, and
Exactly.
that pays off.
Yeah. So let's see if Panthers actually manage to continue that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good to start.
Yeah. Okay. The Guards against the Dragons. Okay. What do you guys think about it? Before we mention anything about Dragons, what do you think about this brand new team, the Guards?
I think that they enter in the game with confidence. They play good football, but for me, they doesn't have the best system. I think that they have to figure out some things that it make that the team was a little bit short for the game.
Yeah.
They lacked a second game plan to say like that. They played a good first half, especially that fumble recovered and everything. But it's what Pablo said. At the end of the second, third quarter, they started, especially in defense, to do not get to the ball.
Yeah.
They couldn't arrive to hit Connor. They couldn't arrive to the receivers, and they didn't change the pace. They didn't change the system. They didn't change the assignments.
coverage.
Yeah, I think that's the issue. But on the other hand, it's logical. They are a new team. They are starting in the league. So the first year, you will have less chance of having that type of changes between the games. You
Yeah.
will have time to say we're gonna pass from a cover 3 to a cover 2, or you are going off man and you are going. I think that's the issue. But I see a good start for a new team. Obviously, if you think in a team that wants to fight for the playoffs, they are really, really far.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a good start. It is true that like the very first points, like in the game, it was a fumble.
Yeah.
It was a bad snap. It was a bad snap that like went over Connor, which is pretty hard. It's pretty hard to miss Connor
Yeah.
because he's a tall quarterback, and if you're like overthrowing the snap, then we're gonna have a problem.
Yeah, it's really high.
It's really high. So the very first points scored in the game, they should have given the Guards confidence
Yeah.
and maybe a little bit too much. Because like
Maybe yes.
later on, like moving on to the rest of the game, if you only score 10 points, there's either a great defensive plays from the Dragons, which they did. They had,
For example, the
Like
Basero interception.
yeah, they had 2 interceptions. They managed to make several turnover on downs.
For example, in the last quarter, there are, I think it's 2, I'm not sure if it's 2 or 3 times that they enter the red zone of Dragons and they get stuck there and they get the turnover on downs. Cool, going with the ball like 60, 70 yards, but it's what we have said about Panthers.
Yeah.
If you want to win, you have to
that
finish that drive. And I'm not saying that you have to score every single touchdown in that kind of situations, but you have to get out with points.
Yeah, that's
So-
3 times that you've been in the red zone. You get the 9 points of the 3 field goals.